Welcome everyone to the Entrepreneurship Student Panel. My name is Julia Burke. I am a coach in the Career Development Office, CDO, and I'll be moderating our student panel today. So a quick overview of how the session will go. We'll do a quick overview of who the CDO is. We'll do a quick overview of entrepreneurship at Yale SOM, get to know our panelists, and then dive into some questions. So it'll be a really exciting hour together. So the Career Development Office at the School of Management, we empower dynamic careers. We want to explore, educate, and thrive together. We consist of two teams. We have our employer partnerships team and our career education and coaching team, which is what I'm on. We work with you for coaching, career education, and recruiting. We keep you up to date with career news and other updates. We explore each phase of your job and internship search with you. We review and engage with resources and career platforms offered to you through Yale SOM. We also offer numerous resources, including a career management system called CMS. There's an online career education research and skill building tools you can find online when you're a student. We offer one-on-one coaching, and there are also employer events spanning informational sessions to networking events. So we do a lot at the CDO. And since this is the Entrepreneurship Student Panel, I wonder if, Matias, you could give us a quick overview of what entrepreneurship looks like at Yale SOM?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Julia. Hi, everybody. My name is Matias. I'm originally from Argentina. I lived there until I came to New Haven to join SOM for my MBA. I have a degree in business economics, and most of my experience is in the startup world and also as an entrepreneur with a few ventures of my own. Now, myself and some of the people joining us, other students are part of the leadership team of the Startup and Entrepreneurship Club at SOM. So I like to share some of the different resources that are out there for everybody interested in entrepreneurship. On the one hand, there's the program on entrepreneurship, where you can basically find like a huge variety of different classes, from the basics of entrepreneurship, concepts, methodologies, also more practical classes where you can actually apply and join with your own startup to work on your startup, get academic credit for that, and you get the advice and mentorship from part of the faculty. So that is pretty helpful. And then there are also collaborations with broader Yale. There are plenty of grants, fellowships that you can apply for with your startup. There's like a Yale accelerator that is Sci-City, where you can either apply with your own startup and get support, exposure, advice, and some funds. And like in my case, you can even work for Sci-City and collaborate with other entrepreneurs working on their startups, which is super insightful. And at the same time, from the Startup Club, we want to bring many different kind of activities on the social community aspect, trying to bring entrepreneurs together. We had a tell us what you're working on kind of event where people would tell about their startups and get feedback and connect with other people at SOM. But we also bring external speakers, either Yale alumni to talk about startups that they founded or startups that they are working on. So to give you a broader understanding of what it takes to work in the startup space and what it might feel like starting your own venture. So in that sense, I think there are plenty of different possibilities and resources at Yale.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that great overview. So in depth and so great to hear about all these opportunities. And thank you for introducing yourself a bit as well. Let's dive into some introductions of the awesome panelists we have today. Zainab, I wonder if you could go next and please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Zainab. I'm a second-year MBA student. My background is in economics and public policy. I worked for a think tank for a couple of years in DC and wanted to transition away and find my own venture. So I came to SOM, did the Sci-City Launchpad program last year with my initial idea. Over the summer, I worked for a food business accelerator on the business development content generation side, and later for an agtech startup on the customer analytics, helping them analyze the consumer journey on their website, helped a student venture with their go-to-market strategy last year at SOM, another food venture with fundraising. So I've been very much into the food and intersection of food and entrepreneurship. Currently working on my own food venture as part of the Startup Founder Practicum. And if you have any interests in food, please let me know. Happy to speak to that.
Awesome, thank you. William, do you mind going next?
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is William Morris. I'm a second-year MBA here at SOM. I'm from Dallas, Texas originally. I studied at Davidson College undergrad and got a degree in economics there. Before Yale, I was working in a real estate finance role for a company called JLL in Charlotte, North Carolina. I wanted to come back to school to do a couple of things. I wanted to continue pursuing my traditional career track in real estate, but pivot to the private equity side of the business. I also wanted to look into founding my own company. And so that's what I've been doing over the past year or so. I came to Yale, and last summer I interned at a real estate private equity firm in Austin, Texas. And I've been balancing that with starting my own golf apparel startup. So I'm sure there's a lot of you who are balancing a traditional career track with entrepreneurship. You're not alone. That's what I've been doing, and happy to answer any questions on that front. So thanks for being here this morning.
Awesome. And Afan, thank you for being here. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Julia. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Afonsh Tick. I'm also a second-year MBA. Originally from Los Angeles, undergrad with UCLA. But my background is in public health. So prior to SOM, I was working as a consultant for a while, helping countries essentially build up their capacities for various public health stuff. And then I transitioned more towards digital health, and that became my interest. And for a while, I had my own consultancy where I was doing projects with major governments. And I realized there's this huge need for digital interventions for public health. And I found my perfect fit here at SOM to pursue some of those ideas and learn a lot from various different industries. So very excited to be on this panel here and discuss some of those opportunities.
Wonderful. And Matias, I just wanted to turn back to you and open up the mic. Was there anything else about your experiences you wanted to share after everyone else went?
Yeah, sure. I have a business economics degree. After a few years in the banking industry, I joined an accelerator for the LATAM region. And after that experience, I founded about 3 different startups in various industries, from HR consulting to a clothing e-commerce to a SaaS platform for real estate brokers. So various experiences. And when joining here, I just wanted to keep collaborating and helping and get involved in the entrepreneurship space. And during my time at SOM, like I mentioned briefly, I joined as a portfolio manager, the Sci-City Launchpad program. So I basically helped and kind of had regular meetings with students at Yale, not only SOM, and help them navigate the kind of business development process of their ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for those great introductions. Let's start with our first question. I'm going to open this up to the group, so whoever wants to take this first, you can jump on and mute. So the question is, has any of the panelists had an idea for a startup when they began at SOM? And if so, how did that develop? So I'll open that up.
Julie, I'm happy to jump in on that one. That's exactly my situation. I had an idea coming into SOM, didn't really know how to execute on it. So I came in last August and got into the Sci-City Launchpad program, which is one of the programming resources at Yale, where they helped connect me with a mentor who had relevant industry experience in what I was going into, which was golf apparel. And they really helped me business plan and get my idea off the ground. Not only business plan, but do a lot of market research, figure out who our target customer would be, and then really get the framework together for how I wanted to launch into that market. So that was my first experience with entrepreneurship at SOM. After that, I started taking the Startup Founder Practicum course at SOM, which is a great academic resource where you get to work full-time on your venture for credits at SOM. And so I've been doing that. I did that last spring and I'm doing it this fall. Have a mentor who's a professor of entrepreneurship here at SOM. Her name is Jennifer McFadden, and she's been extremely valuable for me, helping move my venture along from initial business planning to getting a strategy ready to launch the brand. And so I've been working on it for a little over 12 months now, and have basically been able to take it from an idea last August to we are launching the business this spring. We'll be selling golf shirts in the spring. So it's been an incredible experience through the programming at Yale, through the academic resources, and through the mentorship resources that are available as well. So it's been a really wonderful experience and helped me get my idea started and off the ground here in a couple of months.
That's really exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, William, that kind of flows into another question from one of our attendees about classes. So the question is, what types of classes are important to learn entrepreneurship skills? Are there any math classes involved? If so, which one? So you kind of touched on a few, but I don't know if anyone else would like to fill in a little bit more on classes and academics in terms of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. Oh, Zainab, please go ahead.
It's okay. I was just going to follow up on William's point of like Startup Founder Practicum is a great way to work both on your startup for credits, receive mentorship, and also we hear from entrepreneurs, investors, operators every week who come and speak, well, virtually right now, but speak on everything from like how do you build an MVP, how do you hire, how do you find technical talents, fundraising. So that's been really helpful. And there are also classes outside of SOM. So right now, for example, I'm taking a class at the law school called Think Like a Founder, which also kind of walks us through the business plan, fundraising, everything that you'd want to know. Plus, we get a lot of speakers, much like the Founder Practicum course, but more from the legal and VC side of things. So I feel like if you're looking for classes, you'll definitely find them as part of the elective courses at SOM or wider, like Yale University classes.
Yeah, and I think that one of the great benefits and something that Yale SOM is proud about is the connection and relationship with the rest of the schools at Yale. So that is a great opportunity, like Zainab was saying, to join and attend a class outside of SOM. And there are plenty of entrepreneurship related classes. But specifically at SOM, apart from the Startup Founders Practicum that Zainab and Will mentioned, you also have kind of a follow-up class that is Startup Founder Studies for those that might have a bit more developed venture, not in the initial phases. So you have like these two stages of classes to work on your own venture. And apart from that, there are also like in general classes to share knowledge and teach about methodologies and like principles of entrepreneurship is one. And another one is entrepreneurship and new ventures. So there are plenty of like general entrepreneurship classes to spread the knowledge about the space. And maybe if you're focused on certain aspects of entrepreneurship, you do have like entrepreneurial finance, you do have also management of software development. So depending on your specific interest or what you want to learn about, there are plenty of classes. And if you have a look at the document that I share, you will actually have a list of a bunch of classes at SOM.
Wonderful, thank you. Afan or William, anything else to share on the academic side and what's available in terms of classes?
Yeah, so one kind of thought occurs to me that really entrepreneurship permeates throughout a lot of your academic coursework here at Yale. In our first year, as a first year MBA, you're required to do a set of core classes. And one of those core classes is Innovator, where you actually go through a lot of these design thinking processes. So there is that, but also in other classes, it's very much case-based. So a lot of these cases often touch upon or are directly about various startups. So I think the opportunity to learn from examples and have that experience is very, very much prevalent here through the academic work here at Yale.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the only other comment I would add is I've been blown away by the fact that, you know, obviously there's 100+ people on this call. Folks are going to be at different areas of their dive into entrepreneurship. I've been blown away at SOM about the fact that they have classes that are very relevant for if you're very new to entrepreneurship and just starting out, if you're kind of in the middle of starting a business and want to learn how to develop it along, or if you're pretty advanced and you want to learn more about capital raising, exit options, how to grow your business, etc. There's classes that cover the entire spectrum. So I've found that to be a very useful part of the SOM curriculum.
Wonderful. So I want thank you so much for all of these great tips and resources at Yale. I am going to transition our conversation maybe to Matias and Zainab a little bit, because one of our questions is for any of the panelists who are international students, were there any particular challenges with visas? And then talking about the international experiences maybe available to SOM students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Zainab can also jump in here. I'm in kind of a particular spot because I'm from Argentina, but I have a US passport. So my situation is probably not the same compared to most of the international students here at SOM with regards to documentation and visas. So maybe Zainab can add more value from her experience.
I'm still trying to figure out my own visa process, so I don't know how helpful I'll be on that. But the international student office is like certainly helpful and will work for with you and figuring out that process. And we even had some sessions where we had the Yale lawyer present in a webinar, and just like Q&A, you can ask any kind of legal matters or questions that you have in mind. They even follow up with you offline. So it's a process, yes, but you receive a lot of assistance at Yale.
100%. There is the Office of International Students and Scholars, which you can search online. Absolutely. So moving into another question, if entrepreneurship is a long-term rather than an immediate post-MBA goal, how does SOM help achieve that? Anyone want to take that?
So I'm happy to take a stab for that because that's kind of the position I'm in. I came prior to SOM with more of a startup entrepreneurial background and wanting to post SOM build up some corporate experience. So despite that, in the long term, I do want to go back into entrepreneurship, and kind of the value I see here is developing those networks that would enable that in the future. I think Yale SOM is such an amazing place that brings together a diversity of people. By far, it really does kind of blow me away how unique and special everyone I meet here is, and how different their backgrounds are. So I think for me personally, it's really that network that down the road, these are people I can reach out to and kind of use as a soundboard for different ideas and maybe even collaborate on. So for me, that's what really truly kind of is beneficial in the long term.
Yeah, I had to agree with Afan and what he's saying, in the sense that as an entrepreneur myself, before coming to SOM, I do know and kind of stress enough like the relevance of the networks, the people you know, how that can help you start your business or grow your business or get the support that you need. So getting involved with the entrepreneurship club or entrepreneurial space within SOM, that is super helpful. And at the same time, joining many of the speaker series that we host and getting to learn from people that went through the same process and are not working for a startup or on their own startup can bring a lot of insights that you can keep with you along your professional journey.
Great. So I want to ask this next question. It's a little bit of a two-part question here. We've talked a lot about resources available for entrepreneurship at Yale, but thinking more specifically about launching a startup. So what types of resources are available to students to help launch their startups? And the second part is, how has being at a place like Yale enabled you to gain access to capital for grants, fellowships, or other funding sources? If anyone wants to take on that question. Happy to repeat as well.
Yeah, I can start. I think that maybe related to some of the things that we mentioned, being part of Yale and maybe the Yale brand is also helpful for you to reach out to either professors or contacts of professors, reaching out to them, networking with them. If you join a kind of introductory class to entrepreneurship, you can start building those connections. There are plenty of grants and fellowships specifically for Yale students. So you're in a pretty particular and incredible position while being a student to access those grants and those resources that will help you eventually launch your startup. And then again, either joining these classes that we mentioned or also the accelerator, the launchpad that Zainab mentioned before and that we also joined. That launchpad is designed for those people in the super early stages. So I work for City and I collaborated with, in my case, undergrad students that were just in the idea phase. So they had not any kind of development or any kind of progress actually done for their startup. And the launchpad is actually designed for that, to help you get through just the idea, like Will was mentioning his personal experience, to an actual MVP and getting to market your product. So I think you're in a pretty good situation being part of Yale to leverage all those resources.
Others want to think about that question, which it was, how is being at a place like Yale enabling you to gain access to capital for grants, fellowships, other funding sources? Anything else to add to what Matias has said, or I can move on?
I guess one important thing to add here is that the Yale Network, again, coming back to that, is quite widespread. So even within VCs, you can find a Yale alumni to connect with, and just having that kind of shared identity opens a lot of doors for you. And I'm sure this will be touched on later in this webinar, but I think that goes a long way as well when you're looking for potential sources of funding.
Great, thank you. So the next question, I think this is a question that I think everyone can address. Can you tell us about your summer internship and how the integrated core curriculum helps to prepare you?
So I can start us off here as well. So I spent my summer working for a biotech startup out of San Diego. And I think prior to coming to SOM, I was very technical focused towards public health and kind of helping think about how do we prevent, detect, and respond to various public health threats. And the aspect that was missing for me was how do we how do we involve the private sector and kind of really push forward innovation. So part of my summer, this past summer interning, was I got to actually develop a go-to-market strategy for this biotech firm. And it was a really amazing experience that drew from a lot of what I had just learned the previous year. So it was a great opportunity to apply a lot of those skills and learn a lot.
Yeah, and in my case, for example, like I mentioned, I have an entrepreneurship background, and I love the space, and I'm involved with the club and a lot of the things happening at Yale. But I was looking for a transition to working for a big corporation in the CPG space in particular. And I think the help that I got, either from like tailoring my resume from a pure entrepreneur kind of focus to a more intrapreneur and highlighting what my skills and background can bring to a company, and also having the mock interviews that we have, and all that kind of like professional preparation is great to understand what of your background can be highlighted and tailored towards your goal post MBA.
Great. And William or Zainab, do you have anything to add about the core curriculum integrating with your summer internship you'd like to share?
I'm happy to share. Again, my summer internship was in a very traditional career path, real estate, private equity. But I just found that after going through the core curriculum and being involved with such a talented group of individuals from so many different backgrounds during the first year, just made me really well equipped to go into my internship over the summer. I think I was a much more well-rounded and dynamic candidate overall, just in terms of problem solving and creativity. I was working for a middle market private equity firm, and so they're very big on entrepreneurship, coming up with new and creative ideas and ways to invest equity out of our fund. And so I just found that a lot of the creative problem solving skills that came up throughout the core curriculum were really, really helpful in that sense. And then just being able to work with individuals, the collaboration that we did in our learning teams, for example, during the core curriculum was really valuable going into the summer, where I was working in a similar situation of a group of 4 or 5 people on a team in my internship. I found that really helpful in preparing me for the summer.
Great. Wonderful. Well, we can move on. I really like this next question. I wonder if anyone could provide an example of a peer you met at SOM or an alum that has or had the job you want, and how helpful have you found the peer connection to be? Are there any specific examples of someone who you met?
I do, and this is related to my internship experience. As a first year, actually through the Startup Entrepreneurship Class, I met one of the second year leaders at the time, and he interned at the same company I was recruiting for, and I eventually interned for as well. So honestly, talking to him and getting to know the recruitment process, what kind of professional they were looking for, the values that they highlight, how to better position yourself in the interview, and a lot of the kind of interesting questions that you might get throughout the process, and what are the values that they kind of foster within the company. Those things that maybe you cannot get from someone that has not been at the company or recently went through the same process that you're going through. So talking to someone that is actually a recent hire for the company and has all the information fresher is helpful. And in my case, it was super helpful to get to know a bit better about the company, the process, and eventually getting the internship offer.
Any other specific connections?
Yeah, I'll share on a meaningful relationship to me. So during the Tri-City Launchpad last year, part of it is getting paired with a mentor. I was paired with a second year who came from the apparel industry. He was the president of a women's activewear company, and he did that for 6 years prior to SOM. This was a really valuable connection for me, somebody who had no experience in apparel whatsoever. Being able to connect with someone who is an expert in that industry was really, really valuable. We spent an hour a week together last fall as we kind of picked apart, what the golf apparel market looks like, who is our target customer, and he had such valuable insights for taking my very rough idea and making it into a really well-defined business concept. I still keep in touch with him today. He's transitioned out of the apparel business, but he has such valuable information for me as I'm going through something that's brand new to me, and something that he has 6 years of experience in. And it wasn't only business development, but even today, as I'm working with a factory in South Korea on developing our prototypes, he has great insights on negotiating pricing with that factory, how to control our inventory, how to get prepared to go to market, what's our launch strategy. So this has been a really valuable relationship to me over the past year now, and definitely one that I'll continue, because I have questions come up for him pretty much daily, and I'll just send him a text, and he's been an awesome mentor for me.
Wonderful. I love to hear about these real life examples, and real time, still ongoing. Absolutely. So moving into, I want to go back to a question that came in that relates back to coursework a little bit, that I think is really interesting. This participant would like to know, do the classes feel more conceptually focused or hands-on / experiential? And that might vary depending on the topic, of course, but since this is the entrepreneurship panel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have both, to be honest. On the entrepreneurship side, I think many of them are more kind of hands-on, which is great, because usually entrepreneurs are more biased to action, and you need to get things done. But you have the full spectrum, from the classes that Will and Zainab were mentioning, where you can actually work on your startup. So that is kind of one extreme of the example, in the sense that there are some lectures, but they are meant to help you navigate your business development process and getting your startup out there and making it grow. To more conceptually, like principles of entrepreneurship, or more like any kind of focus or different areas of building a startup. But I think there's for any taste, there's examples for any kind of type of class that you want to.
Great. I actually have a question that came in specifically for Zainab, so I'm going to ask this. So this is what the person writes. You said you did some prior work in the ed tech space. This person is looking to create their own education startup. Are there any classes that you know of, whether through SOM curriculum or maybe joint electives with the Broad Center, that would be beneficial?
So it was an ag tech, like agricultural tech startup, but I know of peers who are working on ed tech startups at SOM, one in our founders practicum class, and happy to connect you if you send an email.
Awesome, thank you for the clarification. Great, so moving into this next question from a participant. If you are considering launching a startup, is it best to figure out what social issue your startup is going to solve specifically? Or is it okay just to have a general idea about what industry you want to dive into, and see if there are any opportunities during that process? So any thoughts on that?
I'll jump in. I would say it's absolutely okay to just have a general idea of an industry that you want to go into. I think that's one of the beauties of coming back to business school is you come into this environment where you're surrounded by more resources than you could imagine for how to help you not only identify what exactly it is you want to do, but then to execute on it. So if you're coming in and it's a general idea that you have, that's great. You'll get plugged in with the right people who can help you make that idea more concrete so that you can continue on with it. At the same time, if you want to spend a little bit more time prior to SOM, looking into that idea, doing some market research, just having a better idea of what exactly what the problem is that you're solving, that's great too. You'll just come in at a little bit of a different point than you otherwise would have. So either is completely fine. And the resources are absolutely here to help you, whether you're more general or if you're a little bit more targeted coming in.
Great.
Yeah, and generally speaking, you can either, generally speaking, you can either start from a specific problem that you wanted to solve, a pain point that you might have identified, or from a general industry that you think there some part of that process is not working well, and you need to figure out how you can add value. So, I mean, as a founder, you can start either way, and you have the resources here to either identify what is that you can bring to the market to provide value and create a startup, or with your idea already in your mind, start the whole business development process.
Great. So this next question I really enjoy. So the Yale SOM mission is to educate leaders for business and society. And this question is, how have SOM's values influenced you when starting your business? Or in coming to Yale, maybe we can expand that a little bit.
I can get us started here. So for me, it was a big part of it. I think coming from a non-traditional background, that end society part really spoke a lot. And I think it was very it was great on Yale's part to kind of incorporate that from an early on as a part of their mission, because we definitely see the world moving towards this direction where it's not just about your bottom line, but it's also kind of what's the ultimate impact you're having on society and the people around you. So for me, this was a big part of why I came here and kind of what spoke so much to me. So, and you do really see that through the coursework, through the people and administrative people you interact with, through the dean when he speaks to us and professors. So I really do feel like that you do get kind of both hand in hand, the business and society part, and it does make you a more holistic person in the end.
I'd echo that, Afon. I think that just personally coming in, I didn't have a huge and society part of my business concept, but being in this environment, that being a core part of what SOM is, I've definitely been encouraged and challenged by peers to think about that as part of my business. You're right. It's not just about the bottom line. There's a lot more to being a business founder. And I think knowing that and being surrounded by people who are all kind of like-minded in that respect is really helpful to differentiating yourself in whatever industry you're in, because you're not just thinking about the bottom line. You're thinking about, yes, your business, how do I make this successful? But also the and society part is critical to think about as well. So it's challenged me on that front. And I've found that to be really impactful and helpful for my venture.
Great. Matias, Zainab, would you like to add anything, or I can move on to the next question? Okay, great. So this is transitioning a little bit. As full-time students and entrepreneurs, how do you balance everything? Academics, social life, recruiting, etc. Or maybe you don't. I don't know.
I guess, I mean, when we got this from personal experience. Now as second years talking to first years, when you just begin your MBA experience, it can get a bit overwhelming, but that is kind of the MBA life, you will get at some point to understand what your priorities are, what you want to do with your time. Your MBA is actually a pretty good moment to focus on your startup if you have an idea, and eventually you manage. Honestly, I don't know if there's like a recipe to do it, but you get to balance classes, either a part-time job or working on your startup, getting to know people. Like the MBA becomes your life, and you get to pull it off.
So yesterday we had the great opportunity to have one of our alums come and speak to us, Indra Nui, who is was the former CEO of Pepsi, and she said it's not really balancing but juggling. And I think that does ring true on many levels, that it's such an amazing opportunity that you want to make the most out of every aspect of it, but it's really a matter of juggling kind of what's important to you and making the most on those fronts.
Real quick on the balancing part, it's a great question. There's a lot going on when you come to school. You're pulled in a lot of different directions, and like Matias says, you kind of have to figure out what your priorities are. That said, hopefully whatever it is you're coming to focus on, you're passionate about. And I would say that part of the balancing act is a lot of the things I do, whether it's part of my startup, part of my academics or social life, I have a lot of fun doing it. And you're around a lot of people who are excited about what they're working on. So the environment itself lends to being able to balance a bunch of different things because you're having fun while you're doing it. And that may sound a little bit cliche, but I have genuinely found that when you get around a lot of people who are motivated and who are driven to accomplish goals, whether similar or different than yours, it is a really energizing environment to be in. And I think that helps balance everything out and get everything done at the end of the day.
Great. All right. So
yeah, and sorry,
go ahead,
Julie,
sorry.
if I can now just adding one thing that will come and maybe remember about. To be honest, and one of the reasons I actually decided that I want to join Yale for the MBA was the collaboration, the community, and I think that is something that you can see when, for example, balancing a lot of different commitments. If you're either in a part of the year where you're with plenty of interviews, or maybe you're working on your startup, or you're doing something and you have plenty of assignments and classes. In many of those cases, you have a group that you're working with, and people are super well predisposed and willing to give you some space and maybe distribute in different ways that they, like the academic workload while you're doing something else. So I think that is super valuable once you join here and get to meet the people that you're studying with, and that helps a lot also getting to do everything at the same time.
Absolutely. This is all great advice. And I actually think, Matias, what you just mentioned kind of goes into this next question a little bit. And that question was, let's see, this person says, I'm curious to know how the entrepreneurship ecosystem at SOM has helped create an intrapreneurial spirit among students across industries and functions. Thought that was an interesting question, so I can read that once more. So, curious to know how the entrepreneurship ecosystem at SOM has helped create an intrapreneurial spirit among students across industries and functions.
I mean, just to get started, I do think that you have a diversity of people, you have diversity of backgrounds, and getting exposed to many of the typical startup methodologies or concepts, that kind of is a way to start shaping the way you think and getting more closer to an entrepreneurial mindset. And I think more and more companies, and I've experienced that myself, being an entrepreneur and then interning for a big company. Companies are seeing more value in entrepreneurs and the way, let's say, tech companies think. Now every company is a tech company. They're all looking for that kind of approach to how you face a problem and try to solve it. So I think in that sense, being around other people, sharing your ideas, becoming part of the community, reaching out to other entrepreneurs, get you to have a more diverse kind of way of thinking and being more prepared to face any kind of challenge in any given industry, regardless of your personal experience.
Great.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Matias. I think one of the interesting things I've found since being here is my conversations with individuals who are going into more traditional careers. For example, both of my roommates, one is going into investment banking, one's going into consulting. I've had some of the most interesting conversations about entrepreneurship and innovation with those two individuals. So the point is, you're surrounded by very ambitious people, whether they're doing something entrepreneurial now or doing it later. It's at the core of what people are thinking about, innovating, being creative, whether it's at a startup or whether it's at a massive bank. So the entrepreneurship sentiment is just very alive in the SOM community, and the individuals that are a part of it, whether they're directly involved in entrepreneurship or not, it's definitely alive within everyone here. And it's something that we've focused on too. Matias and I in the Startup and Entrepreneurship Club is not only focusing on founders, but individuals going to companies who want to be innovative and creative in their roles. So definitely part of the spirit of entrepreneurship here at SOM.
Wonderful. So there is a final question that I'll get to in a moment, but let's take a quick break from entrepreneurship at Yale. Let's talk really quickly about New Haven. The question is basically asking about living in New Haven. I'm going to condense it a little bit and ask for your top 3 favorite things about living in New Haven from each of you. And anyone can start. And participants, don't take their silence as there's no good things. They're just thinking about all of the great things.
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the things that I like about New Haven and was one of the aspects that I liked about coming to SOM was the fact that New Haven is basically kind of a college city in the sense that you're close to everybody else. You walk in the street and you run into an MBA student, and whenever you get together for dinner or for drinks or for whatever activity you do is walking distance. So being close to each other, that also fosters that kind of collaboration and relationship with the rest of the people at the MBA. I think that is great, and it's the things that I value the most. And then, I mean, in my particular experience, I don't know how it's like in other cities, but I love playing sports. There are actually plenty of soccer fields, tennis courts that are free and available to all students, not only from Yale, but also like public schools that have tennis courts, or in East Rock, you have like a big green space with soccer fields, and having that in walking distance is great to relate and have activities with other people.
Great. Other top things, William?
Yeah, I would add the community feel of New Haven is incredible. I don't have anything to compare it to, but I did visit a lot of other schools, and I think that the way that we're set up is just very, very unique. It is a college town, like Matias said. We're not in the middle of a massive city, which is great, and it's very integrated too. So whether it's undergrads, law school students at the school environment, everybody's very integrated. Everywhere you go, it's folks at Yale, and so it's really cool to see that community feel in New Haven. And I've absolutely loved that, and just gives you a chance to really immerse yourself in that community and not be distracted and pulled in a bunch of different directions outside of the community, which I think has been awesome and just been a great experience for my first year and into my second year here. At the same time, if you are a big city person, New York's an hour and a half away. So it's nice, just proximity to big city, but also the community feel that we have in New Haven is really, really unique. And that's one of the things I've absolutely loved about being at Yale.
Awesome. And Afan, any final thoughts on New Haven and living in New Haven?
Yeah, so coming from LA, we don't really have seasons. So I think something I've come to appreciate here is just being able to see that, and especially now we're experiencing that fall color change. It's absolutely stunning. And yeah, I think New Haven itself is a great place to be. I think you have a lot of things close by. And like William mentioned, New York is very close. But even here in New Haven itself, like there's a lot of great places to eat. Coming to Yale, you'll hear a lot about Pepe's Pizzeria, and then there's a few other Sal's, and there's a bunch, but I know pizza from New Haven has made it on a lot of people's like kind of #1 pizza list in the US, so that's something to kind of come and try. But yeah, the community feels great. The campus is absolutely gorgeous. I think walking through the main undergrad campus and kind of visiting some of the libraries here, it's just you really have a profound sense of being present and part of something so much bigger than you are. So it's a great place to be, in my opinion.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes, very walkable, bikeable, a lot of green spaces, a lot of great restaurants. Okay, last question. Again, if everyone could take a try at this one. What advice do you have for candidates preparing to apply to Yale SOM? What do you wish you had known when you were applying? So a few thoughts for our applicants on the call today.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is just try to be as honest and transparent as possible, submitting a coherent application and showing yourself the way you are. Because I believe that it's not only Yale looking for the right candidate, but you as a candidate are also looking for the right MBA for you. So the fit is two-sided. So I think the more true to yourself you stay, the better it is to actually enjoy and get the best of the application. And something that probably I would have liked to know before coming here is that it is okay if you don't have a clear picture of what you want to do after the MBA. I think probably many of us think that when we apply or when we want to pursue an MBA, we have to have everything figured out. And honestly, a lot of people come here knowing that they want a change, knowing that some kind of direction, but not actually sure what industry or role, and that is okay. And throughout probably your first year, I can assure you realize what is best for you.
It's great advice from Matias. I completely agree. Being honest and transparent as you're getting prepared to apply and throughout the application process is really important. The other thing I would say is take advantage of the current students that are here, because we're here to be a resource to you all and answer your questions. I believe all club leaders' email information is available. Feel free to reach out to current students, or if you have somebody in your network who's been at SOM or is currently at SOM, get in touch with admissions and ask a lot of questions. I think that's the best way to get a feel for the school before actually getting on campus. So take advantage of that opportunity. I know Matias, Afon, and myself would all be more than willing to answer anyone's questions after to connect directly. We're more than happy to do that. And I think that I wish I had taken more advantage of doing that before getting here, because it's a wonderful place. There's so many great things to take advantage of. So get connected even before you make the decision to come to SOM.
Yeah, those are all great pieces of advice and kind of definitely things I would say. But kind of thinking back to my own journey to SOM, I remember how stressful it was and how there were so many things to juggle. But I think biggest advice is, yeah, definitely like kind of make sure you're on top of things, but don't forget to take care of yourself in the process. And like William said, reach out to people who are here. I think vast majority will be kind of more than happy to help you on that journey. So yeah, take care of yourself and be proactive.
Wonderful, great advice from everyone for everyone on the call. Well, that wraps up the Entrepreneurship Student Panel. Thank you everyone for joining.